I've stood in a lot of rooms in my life where I felt small, but nothing prepared me for the sound of 200 people laughing at the same time. At me, in the gymnasium where I used to play volleyball 20 years ago. $25, my husband said into a microphone somebody had handed him like it was a joke prop. Do I hear 25 from my wife? She irons my shirts and she's real quiet. So that's gotta be worth something. The banner behind him still said, "Welcome class of 2006" in balloons that were already starting to sag. I stood on a little riser they'd dragged out for the class photo earlier that night, and now it was being used for this instead. My name is Claire. I'm 34 years old, and I had spent 2 hours that afternoon curling my hair for a reunion I almost didn't come to, because some small tired part of me knew exactly what kind of night this could turn into if Mark had a few drinks in him. He'd had more than a few. Somebody near the drinks table yelled out a number just to keep the bit going, and a ripple of laughter went through the crowd, like it always does when people decide something is funny before they've thought about whether it actually is. I didn't move. I've gotten good at not moving. 15 years married to Mark Ellery teaches you that stillness is sometimes the only thing you get to control in a room. I looked out past the balloons, past the folding tables with the cheap centerpieces I'd actually helped pick out for the reunion committee, because of course I had, because helping is just what I do. And I found myself doing the thing I always do when I'm embarrassed, which is counting faces I recognize so I don't have to feel the ones I don't. That's when I saw him standing near the gym doors with his arms crossed, not laughing. I hadn't seen Ethan Cross since graduation. 18 years. He looked older, obviously, the way we all did, but he had the same stillness about him I remembered from when we were kids, the kind of quiet that made you forget he was even in the room until suddenly you couldn't stop noticing him. Mark was still talking, still grinning at the crowd, working the joke like he worked every room he'd ever walked into. Come on, somebody give me a real bid. 25's an insult to myself, not just her. More laughter. I felt my face go hot in a way that had nothing to do with the gymnasium's broken air conditioning. And then, from the back of the room, in a voice that didn't need to be loud to cut straight through 200 people talking at once, Ethan said 4 words that made the whole room go so quiet I could hear the ice machine humming behind the drinks table. Put the mic down, Mark. For a second, nobody moved, like the whole gym was trying to figure out if it had actually heard what it just heard. Mark laughed the way he does when he's buying himself time. That short sound that isn't really a laugh at all. Cross, didn't know you were back in town? He said it easy, but I saw his jaw tighten. Ethan didn't answer him right away. He just walked forward, unhurried, past the folding chairs and the half-eaten sheet cake table, and every head in that gym turned to watch him do it. He stopped a few feet from the riser and looked up at me, not at Mark, just at me. And for a second, I forgot there was anyone else in the room. You don't have to stand up here for this, he said quietly. Like it was just the two of us. I want to explain something before I go any further, because none of this makes sense without it. Mark and I have been married 15 years. We met at a barbecue 2 towns over when I was 19. And I fell for him fast, the way you do at that age when a boy pays attention to you like you're the only interesting thing in the room. He was funny back then, genuinely funny. Not the version of funny he does now that costs someone else something. Somewhere in there, I stopped being the girl he wanted to make laugh and started being the woman he made jokes about instead. It didn't happen all at once. I don't think it ever does. It was little things first, corrections in front of his coworkers, comments about my cooking at his mother's table, the way he'd introduce me at parties as my other half, and then spend the whole night barely looking at me. I told myself that's just how some men get. Comfortable, careless, not cruel. I believed that for a long time because believing it was easier than the alternative. Ethan and I grew up 2 streets apart. We dated for a while in high school. Nothing serious, or so I told myself for 18 years. But standing there in that gym, I remembered exactly why I'd liked him. He never once tried to be the loudest person in a room. He just made you feel like the only one in it. It's fine, Ethan, I said, though my voice came out smaller than I meant it to. It's just a joke. No, he said, and something in his face changed. Went hard in a way I hadn't seen since we were kids. It isn't. He turned to face Mark then, and the gym went so quiet I could hear somebody's chair creak 3 rows back. $25, Ethan said. That's what you think she's worth. Mark's smile finally slipped. Come on, man. It's for the reunion fund. Lighten up. I'm not bidding on a bit, Ethan said. I'm telling you what I think of a man who'd do this to his wife in front of everyone she's ever known. For a second, Mark just stood there with the microphone still in his hand, and I watched something shift across his face. The kind of look a man gets when he realizes the room isn't laughing with him anymore. A few people near the front had gone quiet in a way that felt different from before. Not amused, quiet, uncomfortable quiet. You've got a lot of nerve, Mark said. but his voice had lost that easy performance quality it had a minute ago. "This isn't your business, Ethan. You made it everyone's business the second you put a price on her," Ethan said. He wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. I don't know exactly what happened inside me in that moment, but something did. Maybe it was 15 years of small comments finally stacking up high enough that one more push knocked the whole pile over. Or maybe it was just seeing somebody else say out loud the thing I'd spent so long telling myself I was imagining. Either way, I found my legs moving before I'd fully decided to move them. And I stepped down off that riser and walked over and took the microphone out of Mark's hand. He let me. I think he was too surprised not to. "I'm not an item on a program," I said, and my voice shook at first, but it steadied the longer I talked. "I've spent 11 years helping run this reunion committee. I've spent 15 years running our household, raising our son, keeping his business books balanced when his own accountant couldn't. I'm not something you get to auction off for a laugh." Nobody laughed this time. A woman near the punch bowl started clapping. Just once. Hesitant. Like she wasn't sure if it was allowed. And then a few more people joined in until it wasn't hesitant anymore. Mark's face had gone a color I'd never seen on him before. Somewhere between embarrassed and furious. And I understood in that moment that this was going to follow us home. Whatever happened next. "Claire," he said quietly. Just to me now, the crowd noise still going around us. "Don't do this here. You did this here," I said. "I'm just finishing it." I set the microphone down on the edge of the riser. Gently, not dramatically, and I turned to find my purse where I'd left it on a folding chair. That's when Ethan spoke again, and this time his words weren't for Mark at all. "Claire," he said, "when you're done here tonight, I'd like to buy you a coffee. Not tonight. Whenever you're ready. There's something I've been meaning to tell you for 18 years. And I think tonight finally gave me the nerve to say it." I looked at him, and for the first time all evening, I didn't know what to say at all. The video from the gym made it online before I even got home that night. Someone had filmed the whole thing on their phone. And by the next morning, it had a caption underneath it that said, "Husband auctions his own wife, gets put in his place." I didn't watch it at first. I couldn't. But my sister called me crying, and my son sent me a text that just said, "Mom, I'm proud of you." And somewhere around the third phone call, I understood that this wasn't staying between 200 people at a reunion anymore. Mark and I didn't talk about it for 3 days. He slept in the guest room without me asking him to. On the fourth night, he sat down across from me at the kitchen table. The same table we'd eaten 1,000 dinners at, and he said the video had cost him 2 clients already. That his business partner had called, asking if he needed to step back for a while. I watched him say it, and I realized he still wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry it had a cost. "I need you to fix this," he said. "Tell people it was just a bit. Tell them we're fine." "We're not fine, Mark," I told him. "We haven't been fine for a long time." I just kept pretending because pretending was easier than admitting 15 years might have been a mistake. He didn't argue. I think some part of him had known this conversation was coming since long before that microphone ever reached his hand. We filed for divorce 6 weeks later. It wasn't loud. There was no shouting, no dramatic exit, just 2 people finally being honest with each other after too many years of not being. I moved into a small apartment near my sister's place, the kind with creaky floors and a view of the parking lot instead of anything scenic, and it was, without question, the most peaceful I'd felt in a decade. I met Ethan for coffee 3 weeks after the reunion, at a little place downtown with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu. He told me what he'd wanted to say for 18 years since we were kids, that he'd never stopped wondering what would have happened if he'd said it back then, instead of watching me drive off to college with someone else's name already forming in my future. I told him I needed time, and he said that was fine. He'd already waited 18 years. He could wait a little longer. We didn't rush anything. What grew between us grew slowly, the way things do when neither person is trying to prove something to anyone else. A year later, at a much smaller gathering in front of people who actually knew me, nobody put a price on me. Ethan just took my hand and said the only number that ever mattered was the one that counted the years it took me to finally believe I was worth more than a joke. If you've ever been made small in a room full of people who should have known better, I hope you remember this. Worth was never something anyone else got to decide for you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. And if this story meant something to you, stay a while longer. We've got more stories like Claire's waiting for you.